I'd like to introduce our next speaker, Lesli Fitzpatrick. She is the Director of Special Litigation for the Texas Department of Criminal Justice, and she's going to introduce the video that she has prepared on lived experience, and I'll leave it to her to describe it. Thank you, Lesli.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I am Lesli Fitzpatrick. I currently serve as Director of Special Litigation at the Texas Department of Criminal Justice. I've had the great pleasure of serving on the Collaborative Council since its inception back in 2018. I was at that first meeting in April of that year. I was delighted to be selected to be your lived expert this year. Many of you know for the years that I've been involved with this commission that I'm a pretty open book. I've been in recovery. I just celebrated 33 years on October 16th of 1991. And I'm the daughter of a now deceased veteran, alcoholic, and back then they called it paranoid schizophrenic. So I've got 40 years of that lived experience. So I'm not going to take up any more time, but thank you so much for being here. And I too want to be that resource to help however I can. When that person comes to me, and working at the Texas Department of Criminal Justice has just been a dream come true for someone that has a albeit small criminal record. I was arrested twice for DWI back in the early 80s, and January 1st of this year, it will be 40 years since my last incarceration. So I'm delighted. Thank y'all for your time. My name is Lesli Fitzpatrick. I currently work in the Office of General Counsel for the Texas Department of Criminal Justice. I serve as Director of Special Litigation. I have been in recovery since October 16th of 1991. I just recently celebrated my 33rd anniversary. The opinions and views that I give during this talk are my own. I am the daughter of a now deceased back when he was diagnosed, it was called paranoid schizophrenia. Today it is schizoid affective disorder and alcoholic. And I was impacted that for the first 5 years of my life. He and my mother separated and divorced when I was at the age of 7. My father had a terrible childhood. He was a veteran. He went into the service, and when he was on a submarine, he had a psychotic break. And back in the late 50s, when he was in the Korean War, they didn't know how to treat mental health back then. They used electrical shock treatments, and my father got all of the shock treatments that they could medically allow. And it really destroyed him as a person. And as a child, you don't understand what's going on in your home. As I grew up, unfortunately, members of my family would say to me that I was just like my father. And as a child, becoming a teenager, that was very difficult because my father was not thought of very kindly in my family of origin. And I had a very difficult time. I was overweight, wore back in the day what they called husky clothes. And I would say that I had an addictive personality from the day I was born. And I would medicate my feelings with food. And so I remember my family when I was younger would scold me because I was overweight as a child. And I remember having to go out in the bushes with a bag of saltine crackers and eat in secret so my family would not get on to me for that. My mother relocated us the summer before my sophomore year in high school. I was born and raised in Lubbock. And so I'd gone to school with all my neighbor kids and was, familiar with all that. And when we moved to Midland, I felt like a fish out of water. And by my junior year in high school, I discovered alcohol. And alcohol took away the fear, the aloneness, not feeling like I fit in. And I was able to make friends. I ended up becoming a pom-pom girl. I was a rebelette, made fairly decent grades, didn't have any trouble with the alcohol because, you know, when I started drinking in Texas back in 1980, the drinking age was 18. And so it was not that big of a deal. I ended up getting an academic scholarship to the junior college, and my alcohol became a problem. And by the time I was 20, I was arrested for my first DWI. Back then, back in 1983, we had deferred adjudication, and so I was able to successfully complete that probation, and that case was dismissed. And before I turned 22 on January 1st of 1985, I was arrested again for my second DWI and was placed on probation for a couple of years and successfully completed. In fact, I was released a year early for good behavior. But I didn't quit drinking, and it took a few more years until October 16th of 1991, where I finally went to treatment for my own alcoholism, and by the grace of God, I have abstained ever since. When I had been off of alcohol for about 2 years, my father reached out to me, and I hadn't talked to him in years, and wanted to reconnect. And we did, and I found out that he had gotten a DWI, and the court had ordered him into recovery meetings. And so we had that little common bond for a very brief period. But he never practiced the recovery, and he never had what I would call any long-term recovery. He died back in July of 2009, and we buried him in a veterans cemetery outside of Las Vegas, which is where he was living at the time of his death. And I just had the opportunity to go to Las Vegas this past September and went to his gravesite. It's the first time in 15 years that I went and honored his memory. Felt like it was the right thing, right time. When I was in the disease, I had tried to go to college. I got an academic scholarship to the local junior college right out of high school and drank that away and went to college for 8 years and accumulated 2 years of credit. When I stopped drinking, had the opportunity to go back to college, and in 8 years of abstinence, I was able to get my bachelor's, master's, and law degree, and I've been licensed to practice law now for almost 24 years. And ironically, my first job as a licensed attorney was as an assistant county attorney in Odessa, Texas, in the same courthouse where I had been previously jailed 8 years prior on that DWI. I've argued my whole life. And, you know, today I argue with a purpose. I used to argue just for the sake of arguing. And I'm what I call a front-line kind of attorney. I have a bachelor's degree and a master's degree in sociology, which is the study of human behavior. And I could have gotten a PhD in that, but I wanted to do something about it. I didn't want to write about it. I wanted to be a change agent. When I first got licensed, as I told you, I was a county prosecutor, and then I went into private practice for the first time at about 2 years licensed. And back then, I think because I was so newly licensed, I really didn't treat my clients to their full personhood. I kind of looked down on them, which I hate to even say that out loud, but that's the truth. And I got another opportunity here recently. I was able to have another private practice in Williamson County for nearly 12 years before I went to work for TDCJ. And I started to see my clients as the way the good Lord above sees them, and wanted to help them get off of the path they were on and get back on a path of health and restoration. Not everybody wanted that, but the ones that I could, I helped. I had been working for the state Senate, and back in July of 2011, and I met a county judge at a CLE that had a DWI drug court program in Williamson County. And he told me about it and invited me. My job had ended with the Texas Senate because the session was over. And he encouraged me to open up a practice, and he wanted me to come to Williamson County to assist him with his DWI drug court program. And so I did. I worked as a volunteer for 5 years on that program, ended up going to work for the county part-time for his successor as the court coordinator. The former judge that put me on the DWI drug court team, he was like, "Wow, Lesli, you have a DWI conviction and you're on this team." And you know what's ironic about that, because that was January 1st of 1985, and I'm approaching the 40th anniversary of that, which is just unbelievable to me. But absolutely, I would share my experience, strength, and hope with any of my clients that wanted to hear it. And when I would go visit clients in jail, you know, they would see me in my suit and they would think that I had nothing to offer. And when I would share about that I had been to jail, that I had been on bail, that I knew what that was like, that I had been on probation, that I experienced all the things that they were experiencing, it really leveled the playing field. I have been recently tapped to be a member of the JSMH Substance Use Disorder Committee, and I'm thrilled to serve in this capacity. My first reaction was absolutely needed, will benefit this commission, because so much of what we do in the mental health realm, especially from my own personal experience, a lot of mentally ill patients, if they're off their prescribed medication, they turn to alcohol and drugs to self-medicate. I saw that over and over in my private practice. So my hope as a substance use disorder committee, that we can work hand in hand with our legislature, because sometimes I feel like we criminalize addiction. And my hope is that we can have more of a treatment-focused response. I think there may be a little overlap, but I think with us having the mental health component as the driving force, I think we're going to complement, like Texas Association of Specialty Courts and some of the other entities that are already in place, because with the pandemic, alcoholism and drug addiction increased by 300%. And so the need is greater, and there is plenty of opportunity for this committee to not only work with, but maybe be able to set some goals and precedents that have been long needed in this particular arena. I just know that we're going to do great things, we're going to change lives, and continue to do the great work of this commission. When I decided to go to law school, I was very afraid. I'm the first attorney in my family. I really did not know if I could succeed. And so I stole a phrase from Nike, and it's "just do it." Because if I had waited for my fear to subside, I would not be sitting here across from you with almost 24 years experience as a licensed attorney. A lot of us suffer from what I call imposter syndrome, and that's a lie. So don't tell yourself a lie, don't live the lie, and don't believe the lie. Because the truth is, you can do it, one day at a time. You can achieve anything. If you are a person that's been inflicted by mental health, by a parent, by your own mental health issues, addiction, whatever, if you really work on yourself and do the work to get better, you can achieve your dreams, your goals, and you can be rocketed into the fourth dimension, as I have been.
Lesli, thank you for educating us and for your candor.